The world you know today stands on a knife's edge of choices made long before you were born. Some choices saved humanity, and some nearly destroyed it. But there is one path in history that still sends a chill through anyone who studies it. The path where Germany does not lose the Second World War. Everything shifts. Every border, every belief, every future dream takes a darker turn. And the story of our planet becomes something far more controlled, far more disciplined, and far more frightening. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. The turning point begins quietly. No big explosion, no sudden disaster, just a series of victories that keep stacking up in Germany's favour. Britain fails to hold the skies. The resistance in London weakens. The factories slow down. The fighting spirit breaks piece by piece. When the last defence line collapses, Europe loses the shield it desperately needed. The British government is forced out. The island that once defied the strongest powers on earth falls to a new ruler. With Britain out of the picture, the balance of the world tips sharply to one side. Germany stands on the European continent without a major enemy left strong enough to slow them down. Next, the East. The Soviet Union tries to stop the advance, but without the winter to save them and without time to reorganize, their defenses crack. The front lines crumble, the cities fall. By the time the world realizes what happened, the biggest land empire on Earth is controlled by a single force. Now the map stretches under one banner, covering territories that were home to hundreds of cultures, millions of families, and countless histories. One government now decides the fate of all of them. Life under this new empire feels controlled from the moment the sun rises. Streets are quietly organized. Posters appear on every wall. Soldiers patrol corners. People walk with lowered eyes, careful not to attract attention. Loud voices fade from public places because nobody wants to stand out. Children are taught lessons approved by the state. They learn stories shaped by the winners, stories that leave out truths too dangerous to remember. Day by day, people adjust to the pressure, not by choice, but by survival. Across the ocean, the United States watches this transformation with tightening fear. Without the strong push from its allies, America never joins the war with full force. Leaders argue in endless meetings, uncertain whether to fight or negotiate. The shadow of Germany grows across Europe and Asia, and the US realizes it might be facing a future where diplomacy replaces bravery. Slowly, carefully, a deal is signed. It is not a partnership. It is not an alliance. It is simply an agreement to survive. America becomes quieter on the world stage, a country constantly balancing politics with fear of provoking a stronger enemy. Culture changes with it. Movies, newspapers, books, and even radio stations begin to soften their voice. Controversial stories disappear. Brave characters vanish from scripts. Everything feels filtered, cautious, and predictable. Instead of bold American identity, a subtle tension fills the air. One mistake in the news, one wrong headline, and relations with the European power might collapse. So everyone walks on eggshells, one careful step at a time. Inside the German-controlled world, science grows, but not in the beautiful, free, creative way we know today. It grows under pressure. Scientists work in isolated labs, watched by guards, controlled by strict leaders. Success is rewarded, failure is punished. A powerful motivation, but also a terrifying one. Rockets advance faster, jet technology leaps forward, factories grow into enormous machines of production, and one day a rocket lifts off the ground carrying the first human from this darker timeline into space. The flag that lands on the lunar surface is not one of peace or exploration. It is one of dominance, a message to the planet. The empire has reached beyond Earth. With the Soviet Union gone and the United States silenced, the world splits into two massive zones. The western half falls under German authority. The eastern half, stretching across Asia and the Pacific, is controlled by Japan. Small nations are swallowed. Cultures are overwritten. Borders stretch unnaturally across mountains, rivers, and homes. Two superpowers face each other like giants with clenched fists. A silent Cold War begins, not between democracy and communism, but between two iron-fisted empires. The fear on this planet is so heavy, it could almost be felt in the wind. Daily life for ordinary people falls into predictable patterns. You wake, work, and sleep under watchful eyes. You follow rules written by leaders you never see. You pretend to agree with ideas you secretly fear. Books that challenge the government disappear quietly from libraries. Songs with too much passion vanish from the radio. Students grow up learning only one version of events, a version where the empire is always right, always brave, always necessary. Hope becomes something whispered in private, not spoken in public. Yet even under such control, humanity never stops searching for cracks. People begin to form small underground groups. They pass tiny messages inside loaves of bread. They hide banned books under floorboards. They meet in dim basements lit by a single candle, discussing ideas that could destroy them if overheard. These groups are not large, but they are determined. Some consist of young students, some of old war veterans, some of ordinary workers tired of living in silence. Their courage spreads quietly from city to city, like the glow of embers waiting to burst into flames. But crises begin to appear. Empires look strong from the outside, but inside they rot. Corruption spreads. Resources dry up. The cost of controlling giant territories becomes too heavy. Leaders turn against each other. Some want harsher control. Others fear collapse. The people feel the cracks, long before the government admits it. Food becomes scarce. Jobs disappear. Soldiers grow restless. The once mighty empire now shakes from within, like an old building ready to fall with one strong push. The first act of open defiance comes from a small European country that refuses to send more workers to German factories. Their leaders go missing within hours, but the message spreads. Other regions follow. A broadcasting tower shuts down instead of airing the morning propaganda. A factory stops production suddenly, its workers refusing to cooperate. Soldiers hesitate to obey orders. A wave of courage spreads faster than fear can suppress it. Japan faces its own internal storms. Territories it once ruled with a firm hand start breaking away. Rebellions spark across Asia. Cities rise. People challenge their rulers openly. And as both empires struggle to keep their control, the world enters a new phase, one where ordinary people finally see a small opening toward freedom. The collapse of two global superpowers is not instant. It is slow, painful, and filled with sacrifice. Entire communities join the fight. Hidden resistance networks that once whispered now speak loudly. Leaders of the underground rise to the surface for the first time. The world begins to shift again, this time towards something brighter. Monuments fall, leaders flee, laws change, and piece by piece the chains of control begin to break. When the dust settles, the world looks wounded but hopeful. Nations that were erased try to rebuild their identity. Families reconnect after generations of separation. Artists write freely for the first time in decades. Scientists finally share ideas without fear. And people gather in the streets not for forced parades, but to celebrate their own voices. But the most haunting realization comes when historians begin to study this dark timeline. They discover how much humanity lost, cultures destroyed, languages erased, inventions delayed, lives taken. They understand how fragile freedom truly is. And they understand how close the world once came to losing everything that makes life worth living. This alternate world stands as a reminder of a path history could have taken, a path where a different victory would have left humanity in chains instead of progress. A world where strength overshadowed compassion, a world where fear ruled the future, and a world that fortunately stayed only a shadow in the background of real history.